Hello, so today we're going to cover the second portion of Project 3, where you begin drafting your literature review. And so your literature review is going to draw upon the 8 sources that you need for this project and the Cornell notes that you took, and which you hopefully color-coded those Cornell notes with a color-coding legend so that particular ideas, themes, arguments, definitions are all color-coded in one particular color, and that allows you then to bring your sources together so that they can have a conversation with each other. That means synthesis, right? And so that you can use these sources together in particular areas of your paper rather than just relying on one source when defining something or one source when introducing the key argument of your research question and so forth. Remember, you're going to need to be able to use at least 3+ sources when you're introducing particular definitions, arguments, and so forth. Okay, so for the literature review, this is going to be the bulk of Project 3 when it comes to text. And one of the things that you want to consider when it comes to the literature review is the student examples that we looked over in class when I was introducing Project 3 the second week. I brought in 4 different examples. Those can be found in the Project 3 Blackboard folder. There's an actual folder at the end that says sample literature reviews. And remember, as we discussed, the cyberbullying literature review by a student was very useful in the way that the student developed headings and subheadings to organize his research question, the research topic, and his focused and narrowed approach to that topic. So if you'll remember, he started out with first introducing the what of his research, which was, what is cyberbullying, right? And he used a fair amount of research to justify his definition of cyberbullying. And then he went into, all right, so what are the participants, the members, the people that are involved in this, right? So he talks about the bully and the victim, right? And how one is positioned as a victim, how one is a bully. And then he goes into the specifics of his research question and problem, and that is the relationship between the two. Not only does the victim experience a very particular type of affect and response, both emotionally, physically, and so forth from being bullied, but the bully, in fact, has particular responses as well. And one of those, of course, was like the discussion that the bully probably gets some type of like feeling of not really doing something as wrong as if you were to do it in person, right? Because it's, it's no one knows who's doing it possibly, it's disconnected and so forth. And then the student moved into the very particular research problem or gap that he wants to address, and that is this idea of the effects of cyberbullying and its prevalence and its increased use through technology, therefore what should be done, right? Which will then move into the proposal where the student would propose some type of response or some type of way in which this problem, this research problem and gap could be addressed. So I suggest looking over those examples. The other thing, and we're going to talk about this when you look at the PowerPoint that will be posted for the week of the literature review, is that you've drafted your introduction, you've received comments from me on that introduction. You might need some particular revisions for that, right? But that introduction is a roadmap for the rest of your paper. So that means in the introduction, you need to start out with the broad what, just like the student did with cyberbullying. and define it and provide background information on it. Then you need to move more systematically into the why this is such an issue that needs to be addressed, and then into the particularities of your research question and problem, which is the how and what would be found and needs to be fixed. So remember again, your introduction is a roadmap for your paper, which means your literature review should follow that to the T. And you should start with broad to specific, just like your introduction does, just like that student examples do. And the one thing that you need to be of utmost on guard for is that you do not include anything in your literature review that has not been mentioned or referenced in your introduction. And I see this all the time. So you should make sure that you have subsections and look at those subsections in your literature review. Go back to your introduction and see whether or not you've mentioned these particular aspects, subsections, whatever it may be, in your introduction. If you've not, then either the literature review needs to be revised or your introduction needs to be more succinct, narrowed, and including these particularities that you're going to cover. And I would guess that probably, yes, your introduction will probably have to be revised, right? And that's the process of writing. And of course, you know, I'll have been giving you comments on the introduction, so revision is probably going to be a must as it is. So remember that I'm going to be out of town, and I'm going to have very limited access to the internet and even my cellular phone, so I will do my best to check my emails if I have Wi-Fi and respond to you, but so kind of be prepared to send me questions either before I leave, which is Monday the 10th, or you know, when I get back, but at that point the draft is due. But that's still fine. You can still send me some questions for further future date revisions of the literature review. All right, have a great week, guys.